So thanks everybody for coming to the CI/CD strategy review, which we do monthly, and is a good chance for engineers or anybody to come and ask questions about what's on the roadmap page. There haven't been a ton of roadmap updates that are major. Like, obviously, the categories are updated all the time, but for the big vision for CI/CD, no real changes now. Next week, we'll do a review of the content that's there with the e-group. So there may be some interesting changes that come out of that as we present our overall strategy, but otherwise it's pretty much the same as last month, and we're still just executing on that same plan. Yeah, the big things that have been going on, I suppose, that I've observed is it's been interesting to follow along the teams that are using Kanban and how that's working, and it seems like there's some really interesting progress there. The limiting of WIP seems to be really, really effective, and I know some teams are still trying to drive down from a very high WIP they had recently, but for the teams that have been able to achieve that, it's good, and the teams that are trending towards doing it are making good progress. So really, really enjoying seeing that. The other things that that are on my mind for CI, which I'm also covering for at the moment, are we've got the DAG and we've got child-parent pipelines out now. And we've also got the new rules syntax out. And all three of those things were probably released over the last 3 or 4 months. And so there's a big focus for us now that we've released these really big features to mature them up a little bit and fix some bugs that are coming in and just try and polish them up and make sure that they're working well. The other big feature that we have coming soon is the Vault integration, which we're doing some technical discussions now and figure out how the right way that that's going to work. So that's a little short briefing on the CI side of things as well. I don't know if any other product managers want to give a brief update on their sections. If so, please add them to the agenda. But otherwise, I'll turn it over to you, Dan, for the first question.
Thanks, Jason, and thanks for doing these. I really do appreciate you doing this sort of walkthrough. It helps me take a moment and think of in a bigger picture. So, yeah, first question I have for the container registry maturity plan on the site. It's currently linked to the old GitLab FOSS issue for Camille that he created, and that's been moved over to the new project. So I was thinking either change it to the newer link, which is the one I linked under Camille's issue, or the Epic. It looks like, Tim, do you want to verbalize your comment there?
Yeah, I think we should use the new Epic. Sounds like that just needs to be updated. So I could make that update in the next cycle of changes, which is due this week or mid next week.
Cool. Awesome. So that one's pretty easy. Unless anyone else has anything else to say, I'll move on to the next one. Yeah, so, and the other one was more just a sharing here that just to give some visibility that the infrastructure team is currently dealing with some pretty high cost in terms of storage, and the container registry is a outsized contributor to that, let's just say, to put it in polite terms. I'd love to have like a better answer than we're working on it, and it'll get done when it gets done. But like, given that the sort of functional team size that's able to work on that is only 2 engineers, I'm just kind of wanting to highlight that it feels like it could take a while before we actually have a really good answer to that. And I think we've got really smart, great people in the team who can solve the problem, but with 2, it'll just take a while. I'm just wondering if you wanted to add any thoughts on that, Jason, or you feel like it's necessary. I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't feel like it is.
No, that's fine. Yeah, costs in general seem to be coming up more with infrastructure, and not just on the package registry, but on like free CI/CD minutes and other kinds of discussions that we're having. And how are we effectively managing the costs of our infrastructure as we acquire customers and introduce people to GitLab and everything is a very big topic that there's a bunch of threads going on. To speak to your specific item, yeah, do we have enough people to work on the things that are important? To a large extent, I have to defer to Tim there, because Tim is he's looking at, kind of like costs and potentials and trying to make the right priority decisions. If there is a specific item that sort of needs people to swarm on it, we can potentially do a, what do we call it? It's like something like a global optimization process or something. There's something defined where we can potentially bring in people to help if there's a specific kind of short-term deliverable that we need to do. So that's an option. But yeah, I don't know, Tim, where is this fitting in the priority? And can you maybe expand on that a bit?
Yeah, I feel good about how we're prioritizing things. I think we're making good progress. I don't feel good about how much it's currently costing GitLab, but I feel like what we've done so far is we've prioritized the optimization work for how garbage collection is run for the different object storage systems in order to unblock a lot of our enterprise customers. But this work was required anyway because it really gave the product developers the chance to see understand what's going on in the code base, build out performance and benchmarking tests. We're implementing optimizations now for Google Cloud Storage, so that is informing how we will architect and design a solution for online garbage collection, which will enable us to actually lower the cost for GitLab.com. So it's a long path there, but when you're dealing with problems of scale where there's several petabytes, and there's also this problem of how do we migrate from the existing registry into the new one, I feel like we're moving in a path, but it's just when we're spending this much money, it never looks like we're moving fast enough. But I think we're moving um, methodically and in the right direction.
Thanks, Tim. And yeah, keep that global optimization process in mind if it does look like there's something urgent and we're not making the progress that we should. Dan, next question is yours.
Yeah, maybe I just kind of wanted an update from you on the capacity planning FY21 conversation that I know is still going on. Whether you feel like we're kind of good where we're at, or whether you feel like there's more changes coming. I know we're trying to sort of adjust our spend um, uh, according to the plan to go public at some point later in the year. Well, we know what point that is, but I'm just wondering if you could give us an update on your thoughts, if you have any, and if not, that's cool. We can move on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've shared the priorities for within the CI/CD section, and I think that those are still being kind of mapped to and everything. The discussions are largely happening at a different level than me now, and it's like with the board, it's with the e-group, and trade-offs are being made for the whole company. I don't know how much more it's going to change or when we'll get the final word, but I do feel like the priorities for CI/CD have been well represented in that process. Sorry, I don't have
Thank
more
you.
details. It's supposed to come soon, although that's kind of been the case for like the last
Right.
year.
Yeah, and I realize that's sort of not an easy thing to answer, so I apologize for that. I just wanted to hear your thoughts because I think you probably had to deal with it a lot more than I did or any
Oh,
of
it's
us
fine.
have. So yeah,
It's a reasonable
thank you.
question to ask. It is a hard one to answer for.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, of course. Tim, an update on the package stage.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about a few things that I was excited about that have come out recently. We recently launched support for NuGet packages, which is a big initiative, is focusing on enabling .NET and Windows developers, and so this moves that vision forward for GitLab as a whole. It's also one of our most popular issues that was just launched with over 150 upvotes, so I was really excited about that. On the container registry front and lowering the cost of storage, we launched the MVC of Docker expiration policies, which will allow our users to programmatically delete images using setting policies. So I'm really excited for that. It's currently limited to only new projects, but we have a plan for rolling it out to existing projects over time. We've also been just improving the package registry. We added NPM tags. We added additional the build metadata to the user interface. So now you could see which pipeline, which job, which commit and branch are responsible for generating a specific package. So this is really a first step in tying together CI/CD and package features a little bit tighter. And then just some things that we're starting to think about now as we head into 12.10 and beyond. I really want to start thinking about, right now we have basically the concept of local repositories. So you can set up a private NuGet repository, for instance. What I really want to give users the option to have is a local repository, what we have now, but also the ability to pull from remote repositories, like pull from NuGet.org if the package is not available on GitLab, and then having a virtual repository, which is basically a combination of those two things where the dependencies are all cached. So you could think of it as your local is your private repository, the remote is the public version, and then the virtual is the dependency proxy caching those packages. We're also really making some changes this milestone and next milestone on updating deploy tokens. It's a very common issue here from customers. The first thing that we're doing is allowing updates to happen using the API, so we can make changes across multiple projects and groups. And then in the next milestone, we'll work on expanding the scopes to include write registry, write container registry, and write package registry, which are big things that we hear from customers consistently. And then also really exciting to see some of the work that the front end team and the design team is doing to overhaul the container registry, package registry, and dependency proxy front end. So I'm really excited to see all those changes being planned and worked on in the coming milestones.
Any questions on that before we move forward? If not, then over to you, Orit, for progressive delivery updates.
Thank you. Tim, sounds really cool. I'm really interested to see how that works with the virtual option. Sounds really interesting. So we're going to start with my favorite topic, merge trains. So at the moment, it is currently disabled on about GitLab. It has been so for the entire milestone because we found 2 critical bugs that we wanted to solve. Those were solved in addition to another request that we had for dog fooding, which will notify in Slack what's going on with your train. So those are all done. The last MR is in review, and once it's done, we're gonna re-enable it on about GitLab. So really good news. Resource groups was delivered in the previous milestone, which allows you to limit the concurrency of jobs and pipelines to make sure that you're not destroying whatever you're deploying to, let's say a physical device, if you deploy more than once simultaneously. That was like, it had like 400 of those that issue. So we're really happy that it made it and it got out. Continuing Tim's point with group deploy tokens, so that's almost done. It didn't make 12.8, but it will probably be finished early on next week. And this actually introduces a new setting to allow group deploy tokens that can be shared between projects in the same group. So any project that's in that group will inherit tokens. So it's also like one of the top most popular issues. And I'm happy to see that we're making progress with that. Next up in 12.9, we have 2 main focuses. One is the truly dynamic URLs, another high priority issue for review apps. So it's actually a really cool feature. It allows you to pass the environment name to the job itself. So it's a slick solution that can probably be used not only for review apps, but also for other use cases where we need to pass things between jobs. So really, really cool feature. And lots of work on refactoring feature flags. We found out that we had limitations to our current implementation, so we're working on fixing them. So it'll be a flexible and scalable solution.
Okay, I guess I'm up next. Oh, are there any questions for Orit before I go? Okay, so to give you a templates update, since the last CI/CD strategy meeting, there is now a new category direction page for templates. There's a little the team is forming, but given the engineers are to be hired for the templates group, I will be coordinating with PMs and existing teams to deliver a few key issues on the upcoming milestone, probably getting some help from the CI team. And then also coming is this theme strategy page for CI/CD onboarding. We want to make that easier and to address barriers for adopting GitLab CI. There's a placeholder page out there now where I'll be adding the content, the strategy of what we want to achieve and what's next. Going back to the direction page for templates, if you go and take a look at it, you'll see that for what's next and why, I'm going to try to target introducing 2 new templates for the issues are separate for Kubeflow and for PyTorch to address the machine learning AI pipeline needs to make them easier. And then going back and fixing our existing templates that either has some bugs with them or some issues, or making enhancements that would make them easier for our users to adopt. And then finally, a couple of issues listed under top customer issues. I actually want to circle back with our sales team and our solution architect team to figure out if I actually have the right ones identified there. Those were based on the ones that did have some upvotes and conversations. And it has come up in one of the customer meetings I was in recently that being able to parameterize project templates would be very useful. Right now, when you use a project template, the CI variables are not copied over. So it is kind of tedious for them to go back and replace or add in all the places in the template that should have some custom CI variables. So that's pretty much a quick summary of what's going on with the templates group. And I'll pass it on to you, James.
Thanks, Tao. Any questions for Tao on the templates group, though, before we jump into a very short testing update? All right. So I just wanted to share that with 12.8, we'll be releasing the first step into accessibility testing. So it's the very first feature in that category. We're leveraging review apps to scan the review app and provide an accessibility report. So we're really excited about that in kicking off that category. It should be really helpful for folks as they start to do more accessibility testing earlier in the software development lifecycle. And then the direction items that the team is working on, one, graphing code coverage that I think Jason mentioned in a kickoff probably 2 or 3 kickoffs ago now, is really being worked on in earnest. The other one, the full code quality report, taking that open source report that we're generating and using to create the merge request diff view or the merge request widget. We're going to be displaying that in the full GUI. That's a pattern that we're starting to replicate with some of the other reports that are generated from testing data or testing jobs. And then we're looking to then leverage that in future releases or add value to that. So we're not just giving you another view of something you could download, but actually making that a lot more usable within GitLab. It's kind of the vision for the broader testing categories. So while these issues have been taking a while to get through, it's been a real great learning experience for the team in figuring out how do we break down these really massive issues into a couple of different merge requests. How do we assign the right docs merge request to the right issue to know that everything is releasing at the right time, so that Daniel and Elliot and I are not in a constant group chat throughout the day for the release post day, making sure we know what is releasing when. So while it's been a little painful, it's been a really good learning experience for the team as it's coming together. And with that, I'll pass it off to Darren to talk about Runner.
Hey everyone, Darren here. Hey, so yeah, just kind of like chatting with you guys and sharing some of the inside baseball, because I was trying to reflect back a bit and realizing that the Runner team, you know, unless you're saying in our engineering meetings, you're probably not very privy to our science and what's actually happening. So let me just kind of step back for a bit. As the Runner team plans each release, we are consciously trying to make sure we include in each release, you know, like priority P2 bugs that have been sitting around for a while, right? So we want to get through a backlog of those bugs. So you'll see in each release that we're investing in trying to reducing those bugs. Then in addition to that, you also see us investing in what I would call very well, high features that are in high demand from the user community, right? So they may not be necessarily big features that moves the needle in terms of our strategy, but they're important to the user community. So we're investing in those as well. So we have to balance those investment needs with this broader strategy that's been described here in the doc. So let me talk a little bit about the broader strategy and stuff what's happening in the doc for a moment. So beyond P2 bugs and beyond high-level great features that all our customers are clamoring for, here's kind of the big ticket things that we're working on. The first is auto scaling, right? As you guys may have realized or remember, we just launched Windows Shared Runners back in January. Well, the launch of that was actually made possible by a new auto scaling mechanism that we developed, right? That's currently being used on GitLab.com for the Windows Shared Runner. So in order for us to get to GA, we've got to make sure that auto scale up. Once that's done, right, then we'll start thinking about, okay, great, we'll need to like extend that auto scaling mechanism to our Linux shared runners, right? In parallel, and this work's already started this release, we are working on the Mac OS shared runners MVC, right? So that's going to roll out soon. In support of the Mac OS shared runners MVC or beta and Windows GA, we're also working on new pricing structure model updates for the runners, right? So because we need now to be able to offer customers, hey, you're using Mac OS shared runners on GitLab.com, or you may be using Windows OS shared runners on GitLab.com. There are different cost models and pricing structures, and so we're working on that. Once that pricing structure stuff is sorted out, and we hope to land that here in the next few weeks, then we'll be pivoting to say, okay, we've got the pricing worked out. Oh, we can now offer premium machine types for those folks that need bigger machine types for their Linux or Windows shared runners on GitLab.com. Maybe you need a GPU-enabled machine. So we need to add those details to the issue, so we're looking to roll that out. So let's to recap. We've got to mature the Linux we've got to mature our autoscaler on Windows shared, dogfood it a bit, migrate our Linux shared runners to that. In parallel, roll out Mac OS shared runners on GitLab.com, roll out new pricing structures, and then roll out new premium machine types. In parallel, we're also rolling out an auto-scaling driver for AWS Fargate. So in this release 12.9, we'll have a story around auto-scaling runners on ECS. That Fargate driver is building on the auto-scaling capabilities and really gives us a whole different conversation about what we can do with Fargate and what we can do from a differentiation standpoint in regards to auto-scaling. And then finally, long-term is once we get all that stuff sorted with the autoscaler, then we're going to say, okay, let's start extending the use of this auto-scaling capabilities to AWS, GCP, and Azure for those self-managed customers that are today managing their own fleet of GitLab runners. And the reason is we've got to eventually replace the current Docker machine autoscaler. That's the technology we're using today to manage those fleets of runners, and because that Docker machine autoscaler is deprecated. So that's kind of the high level, kind of how we're trying to, how shall I say, manage the various moving parts, the inside baseball of the runner team. I'll pause for any questions.
Sounds good. That's a lot of cool stuff. I didn't see any other questions in the agenda. Does anybody have anything they just want to throw out there? All right. Well, thank you for attending. Thank you for the questions, and we'll get the recording posted soon for anybody who wasn't able to make it. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.